And then speaking of teams that like to take height, Clix and Veno. Clix, when he was playing with Epic Whale and Epic Whale, he was taking high ground way too early, around zone 9, and then on like constantly getting chopped out. But joined by Veno, who has reined him in just a little bit. They did such a good job during Major 3, controlling high ground, especially in day 1.
Okay, yeah. Let's circle back. Clix and Veno. Let's take a moment, right? Let's give them a moment to kind of talk about this duo. How are they performing? You've touched on it a little bit. Can you maybe break down just a little more for me? What has Veno brought to Clix, right? We've seen Clix kind of pair up with a few different duos, and then obviously we had Queasy and Veno for so long.
Yeah. And
then you're suddenly like, okay, wait, Veno, you're leaving EU to go compete on NA. You're already used to competing in EU, and now we're going to change all of that up, and you're going to go play with someone like Clix? Are you crazy?
It's honestly, we've already talked about it, how well paired it is. It's honestly looking almost like a trio competition where you have the IGL, you have the Fragger, and then you have the support player.
Yep.
But you just mesh IGL and Fragger together, and that's Veno. And Clix plays the perfect support. Watching them play in Major 3 was like watching a dance. Constantly in Veno's shadow, Clix was ready to prepare for him. And watching some of these plays that they made in the endgame, where Clix would shoot towards the box, the team would get distracted in one direction, and then Veno would quickly rotate into the back and 1v2 them. It was so exciting to watch them play. They had their strategy down to a pat, but even when a wrench was thrown into that, they were able to evolve, they were able to adjust, and I think even though they might potentially be contested here today, I don't think that's going to throw them off their game too much.
Yeah, well, remember, Major number 3, their debut season, they were looking strong to win the entire Major.
Yeah.
I think it was the last 3 games where things didn't quite go too well for them. I think for Veno, he didn't have a very good start in terms of EU's performance with Tayson. He, of course, played Major 1 and Major 2 with Tayson. You imagine this is like a Titan duo. I mean, you can see on the screen right now, he is ready and raring to go. He's been in this situation before, but as I was saying, he was playing with Tayson, didn't quite work out. He's looking at other options in EU and thought, well, not really any players that sort of suit me here. This is not, I don't want to be going into Major 3 not 100% comfortable, and I think that's why we saw him move over to NA, and as I mentioned earlier, Clix is just the perfect teammate. At the beginning of their sort of journey together, things were a little bit rough. You know, maybe it was just a little bit exaggerated, but you could tell that things weren't quite on the same page. But now though, when you watch them in Endgame, the way they play through these tarps, the way they're hip to hip, as you mentioned, making little strategies, little plays in Endgame, it's so good to watch, and they're really exciting team in Endgame. When they're playing those mid-ground layers, it's so good.
We also have to give a shout out to their coach. Blood X has just done such a good job making sure that they are ready to go, making sure that they are focused, because they are pretty emotional players. When they start getting hyped, they are on a tear, and then once they start going down, it's a little rough for them, but they have been able to work on that, evolve from that. And personally, I saw a lot of growth from Clix during Major 3, where Veno was down, he was feeling out, and Clix just kept building it up, saying, no, we got this, we're doing great. And Veno would kind of turn around a little bit and start smiling on stream, and you know Clix is locked in when he turns off his face cam and comms, and that's what we were seeing in the Cash Cup. You know that when he is starting to take away from his stream, that he is serious.
But Veno and Clix, y'all, are here, and they are indeed contested.
The moment these names lit up on screen, you can just hear the crowd going crazy. I mean, a clear fan favorite for good reason. And I think the most incredible part about it is just listening to Clix talk about the fact, hey, we just found out a couple days ago, yeah, we are going to be contested. But for Damo and Resigns, you have to also factor in, this is familiarity for them. Sandy Steps has been their home as well.
Yeah, and this is a lot of respect coming from both sides. Clix and Veno, of course, just feeling out the playing field right now, playing the outskirts, meaning that no team can, you know, rotate from behind them, whereas
west of Restored Reels, and they know all those duos that are far west on the map, far north, they're gonna have to rotate through Cooper and Kanata. Kanata is notorious for setting up surge bases in positions where you have ample opportunity to deal some damage to other teams.
Oh, look at this. This is the clash we all expected. Veno and Clix versus Oceania's Damo there, who just rotated by. They're going to be the first to get a couple of tags and start to get the lead here. You have to be really careful. Veno and Clix are going to recognize that if they stay in the storm, what's going to happen? Those other teams are going to have strong positions to give them even more of a problem later. But it seems like they want to continue to press the action here.
Kashoro, though, kind of could get caught in the mix here. Not sure if Clix and Veno have spotted him out just yet, but Kashoro, the moment that he tries to break through, that's when Clix sees small opportunity to try and bounce in here. But again, MDF, this is getting a little bit more drawn out than maybe what Clix and Veno were after.
Yeah, because Andalix and Sato were still here. They thought it was just a solo, but now they walk into almost a spider's web here. Sato and Andalix do have heals as well, so they can kind of sustain themselves for quite some time, but I'm not sure how much Andalix has to work with. Meanwhile, the GOATs of the region, the kings of EU, the most consistent duo in the world when it comes to LAN performances in the recent years are here.
Every view we pan over, it's like sharks in the water currently. The fact that Cammy and Seti have now decided to just stroll on over so casually, but they recognize there's no real openings for us to taste this one just yet. Let's prioritize our positioning and set because they can always set up to intervene. Cachorro trying to do what he can to escape, but Veno's gonna shut that one down in no time. His first elimination goes to Clix.
Veno's gonna be the first to claim it alongside Clix here for a big elimination, and that's gonna set themselves off in the right pace here.
Zone, he's still gonna have to deal with all the teams that are already based up, situated, and ready to take advantage of the players that are late straggling in.
Take a look at this refresh from Veno and Clix now, as they managed to find themselves a little bit of a cachet from some leftover action between Casper and Prism. Prism now not being in this fight. And still, you have OCE's Damo and Resigns almost on this warpath with them, continuing to be that thorn in their side, if you will, for lack of a better phrase. But back on over to the focus here as Clix is looking for action here. Those are his walls. It's Acorn, it's Cold on the other side. A very scary team to go against. In the warm-up games yesterday, in the scrims, right, in our practice lobbies, they pulled off a incredible 16 eliminations just to show the lobby what they're capable of.
Yuma Rise under a little bit of duress here, but it's back to Clix. Veno trying to see if they can finagle their way out of this awkward position that they found themselves in, boxed up right next to Acorn and Cold. But again, Acorn and Cold, they've got a decent amount of materials to work with. More importantly still, though, I think that they are certainly willing to jump into a fight if it calls for.
Oh yeah, yesterday has absolutely proven that they can take on any team without a problem. Talk about good teams that are still standing right now, teams that we've been kind of following the story. Victor V and Paper. Paper a little worse for wear. Seems like a bad peek's gonna go ahead and put him on the backside of this engagement here. And Veno facing the struggles of taking a lot of damage here as well, and not being able to recover now as they don't have whites. For you, so you want to stay up. Veno is down right now. Clix has a very important decision to make here. Do you save your best mate or let him get sent back to the lobby so you can just focus in now? Seems like he wants to go for the save. Armored Wall's going to be the saving grace here for a moment, though. Instead, Veno makes the call. Leave me. Continue to play the game here.
Veno knew there was just way too much pressure coming from the other side of that wall. A fully intact duo, and that duo being Queasy and Thomas HD. There's just no realistic opportunity for Clix to bring that one back, but Queasy, he's actually looking a little hurt here. He might have been desperate at that point, and Clix finds himself in a similar situation. Only has small shield potions to rely on, 2 below. When it comes to the damage threshold, he's got to make a move, and he's got to do it now. But I don't think anybody's giving him an opening.
Well, he's still inside the top 20 now. The more teams that fall, this would be excellent for Clix here. He just has to hold on a little bit longer. And he is doing just that. A little bit of a zone pull towards his side, more or less. But High Ground has Cammy and Seti looking from up above, and it has never looked better for this duo.
Kadu and Sia having already been eliminated. And again, reconvening with Clix's
oh my god
POV, but Clix is just crazy with the movement. The fact that he managed to escape.
Still alive.
Still
he's clutching. Almost a top 15 now, and he's inside the top 15. Could he make a top 10? It's so close, and down he goes to the hit.
It could be a really difficult one to actually close out in quick fashion.
We have to give all credit to not only Clix and Veno for Clix's performance to stay alive and secure a top 15, but Damo and Resigns who found even
wow, this is looking like a menacing situation building up currently, though. Clix, Veno, Acorn, Gold, Chap, Teeny, Cammy,
oh my
Seti.
gosh.
I don't think we could ask for anything better at this stage, but fact of the matter is, all these teams are just fixated on one thing, and it's likely the weapons bunker.
And you hear it, it's opening up right now, and Clix and Veno the first to fold as they recognize, hey, there are 4 teams here. This is not the greatest idea. They double back to the campfire. They'll get their chance at the bunker, right? They'll be able to pick up some scraps, get their attachments. Those are current first and third or second place teams basically to be going head to head. But let's jump in with Clone and Kramsu right now. Another team very, very desperate here to find a fight. Clix and Epic Whale are the team not so desperate but ready to defend. But no, they lose the walls first. This is not looking good. But they end up finding the shots, and Clix is so fast. He hits one and then the second before they can even notice what happened to them.
Yeah, you know this guy's been taking some tips from Veno. I mean, he's been forming his own kind of master class at this stage.
The edit in, caught by Veno there. The trap was delayed. Granted a huge, huge opportunity there to get comfortable and situated in this game now. Meanwhile, Clix and Veno on a huge rotate here across the map. Talk about a night and day position to be in. E-linked, material, and much more to work with right now. Clix, though, has to buy some time, get a little healthy here. Starting to run out of shields to work with, though, but still, they get time to regather themselves, to compose themselves for a moment.
The most important part was looking at both of their material counts. That is a strong build count for them to work with, and they're gonna need every bit of it, because when you look at Titans like Thomas HD and Queasy up on the high ground already, just trying to take advantageous shots at any of these teams that are starting to trickle their way in, trying to see if they can suppress as many duos as possible to those mid and low ground layers.
Well, here it is. It seems like they've been able to catch a little bit of extra information there. Now looking for teams nearby. Bryson Bolt's going to be one of the first to go ahead and be in the line of sights here. But the zone hasn't popped just yet. They know it's got to go north. They're working their way through this build here. The cover's been blown, and they back off. Happy with the few tags, but still, they need more eliminations. Surely more placement points if they want to jump up to top 5, as those teams are still in this game.
Ahead of the pack, that reveal medallion as well, gonna help them pinpoint some of these solos that might be running through these pre-existing builds.
Yeah, those extra layers right there. But look at this, Clix and Veno catching up with a tear there. Peterbot and Boyo find Yuma as
looking next to impossible for anybody to try and effectively challenge for high MDF, but we see great things happen. Clix on the other hand, alongside of Veno.
On the other side, Clix and Veno make it out of the drop. And now they're on their way to the north side of the zone here. Still cold, so dangerous on the outskirts here.
Cold making sure to just use the natural terrain, keep himself as concealed as possible. But again, Clix and Veno are more than aware of just how much attention the forecast tower is bound to draw towards them and their initial rotates. But it seems as if Veno and Clix were a little bit more fixated on trying to deal with Shari, Giras, but now having to look back because of the tags that came into play from Cold and Acorn, and Sherry probably a little bit happy about having some of that pressure alleviated temporarily.
I saw Veno saying, wait, is that a solo rotating back here? So he's a little bit more keen now to rotate towards that duo. Nice find on the cactus here. This map awareness from Clix and Veno, given that this is their natural terrain, is flexing right now.
Teeny as well. Bakapar's recognized more than anything else, they need to try and rebuild their material count. Granted, Rift Island can definitely provide, at the very least, ample amounts of bricks, but that's only if they're not disturbed in the process. And seemed as if there are a couple more duos trying to make their way towards top of the Rift Island. Veno Clix also still hanging out inside of the storm. Comes as no surprise, though, really, when you consider the fact they like to stick in the storm a little bit longer than some of these other teams. They're usually pretty consistent about getting those surge tag damages, but they can also be very dependent on the vending machine to accrue the heals to make sure that they can afford this time inside Storm.
Vending machine makes a massive difference. Bunkers make a massive difference as well, as far as having the heals to string together a strategy like this. Cammy and Seti, very, very well executed. Well, that's going to set themselves up for success. They have nothing to worry about other than get to Storm now. For Veno and Clix, a little bit of a different story here. Still a successful game nonetheless. 2 elims, plenty of material to work with, especially in Clix's reservoir here. However, the damage will start to become a problem soon, but
Oceania things are looking a little bit grim there at Restored Reels.
Up against EU, not so much up against NA, as honestly, Resigns and Damo have managed to really hold their own up against Clix and Veno, but you know, Clix and Veno have played very passively, if you will. I think they are recognizing this opportunity before them, and they don't want to just throw it all to the wind because they're being contested. They're willing to play a little bit smarter, and we actually love that because we've seen very different engagements go down when a team's contested. Sometimes they want to headbang right into one another and see what happens. So the results of this drop spot have actually worked out relatively favorable, even for Damo and Resigns there. Meanwhile, what's happening on the other side? Clix also similar pressures, but they find the Asian chance of Bobby on the backside of the zone there, Larpex, and take them down.
And that was a nice moment as well for Clix and Veno, because as you can see, they are just barely managing to stay above water at this point. 27 above on the damage threshold, be exact. And Veno already taking note. Some teams that might be elevated a little bit higher than their current position, but Yuma has absolutely no idea where these shots are pulling in from. It looks like he's getting lit up from 2 different directions, and Batman Booga actually going to be the one credited for that takedown, but Veno, Clix just chopping directly through the center. They've done a decent job as well of making sure to go unnoticed.
Clix out of ammunition for his rifle. This is the worst we have seen this duo, and arguably the most important game right now. So all they have is each other at this point, and this is why they continue to remain below the surge, is because they don't really have the rifle ammo to find the tags. These shotgun pelts, I mean, they're not much. They're not going to do much. You have to take one of these wall-to-wall exchanges here. Strawberry Fist comes out. Great catch here. It's Rapid who falls. And I think, again, they lose the elimination credit. However, the damage, though, is theirs.
And the body loot as well.
Very
Veno
nice.
just practically refreshed the max mats. But most importantly of all, MDF, they've got the relief that they needed as far as that surge damage is concerned. Veno clicks on a box up momentarily, but Thomas
now, the first mistake we have actually seen from Peterbot right there. He should have known better.
Clix on the other hand, he's gonna get credit for Gadu. CM might still be kicking somewhere, but at least for right now, Clix, Veno, they're managing to find the refreshes when they need them most. Plixie and Vika, though, they take lobby here, and everyone is folding underneath them. Clix down to his final 2 HP. Will he have a moment? Finally gets an opportunity to pop a small shield potion, but again, just scrambling, doing everything in his power to survive. He's got players funneling in all from every direction, and it's not going to be enough. Clix has been taken out. Vika and Plixie traditionally like to go after and potentially cut them off, maybe even look to ensure that they can maintain that first place position if you take out second.
This update right now that we're getting onto Clix and Veno, who's on the move here, just north of the Sandy Steps, but they're seeming to double back. Something wasn't right up there. They're backing on off now. A lot of material to make up for here, so bit of a scrappy start. No eliminations tell us that the Australian team of Damo and Resigns escaped the drop.
Always right. We are the only ones that understand this POI, and when somebody is that confident in their knowledge, that's a serious threat.
Yeah, you can saw he had every angle. He knew where to cut them off, basically within the building, the structure, and they knew better than to push into the railway itself, given all the cover that's there. So happy with the damage. Meanwhile, Clix and Veno, though, on the move here. Again, no strangers to the storm here. We saw them double back after going north to try to find some tags. Now they're looping their way again south and then into the new zone. Wins here. This is all win condition setups. Meanwhile, Veno and Clix struggling here below the surge, need damage, they need health, and it's a very healthy Vico and Flixie above them, so not an easy duo by any means, but they don't have that information.
Veno knows that they don't really have much of a choice at this point. They've got to jump into just about anyone's box if they want to keep this Game 5 run going strong, because a refresh is a necessity at this point. The material count entirely too low. They need heals as well, and they're not going to find it unless they eliminate somebody else. But overhead, Vico catches a glimpse of Clix, takes out a huge chunk of his HP, but at the same time, Clix actually does wind up falling, and Veno meets a similar fate. Just no escape from the top end of the leaderboard.
And they just play so smart. Vico and Flixie use those armored walls perfectly to bait them around, and then right when you think they're not interested in fighting, they get at the top on the Veno and Clix there, and you know, it's just excellent defense, and clearly they're playing so well. It's hard to compete against that. And talking about that, Peterbot and Boyo continue to find eliminations. Take a look at the replay here. So these are clearly two very good teams.
Without a doubt. More on that later on, though, because right now it's all about Clix and Veno. They have full-on trapped Damo and Resigns inside of the tunnel now. Here next to Sandy steps, Resigns trying to do it again, but Veno is relentless with the pressure. Clix, on the other hand, eats way too much damage. That could be so problematic. Damo and Resigns, they're gonna manage to escape because Clix has to fall back. There is no other option. They cannot afford to fall here. They are still maintaining a position within the top 10, but the fact that they've managed to fluctuate outside of top 5, that's a position that can be really difficult to come back from, especially when you remember tomorrow's 1.5 times point multiplier.
Yeah, very scary now as tags come in from the distance as well here. Damo and the Resigns are starting to surge with confidence as they push off Clix clearly, but Veno is there to defend. Now, Resigns looking back, not sure if there's a team potentially sneaking up behind them. He'd be right to assume so can't let his guard down just yet. There is danger lurking everywhere, and it looks like it's about to go down there for Damo and Resigns at the hill, but give it a second here.
The other issue, though, that Veno and Clix have now encountered, though, is that this exchange has drawn out for far too long. The launch pad positioning that Veno and Clix like to try and set up for height elevation, try and look for some surge tags, it's going to be cut short. It's going to be stretched out for far too long. And other teams are now having the opportunity to make their approach instead. Peterbot, Poyo already trying to converge onto this location. Forecast Tower in sight as well, potentially, but Aspect, Kazi, they've got to be careful. Lingering around Snooty Station, they don't want to get caught off guard, and sure enough, Peterbot, Poyo, it's all about making it to the launch pad hill.
They're on the high ground right now. If they just peek over, they'll see that there's a lot of opportunity below them starting to develop, but Peterbot's got his attention on the far eastern team here. Glances over in Veno's direction, takes some tags, doesn't quite find them just yet. It's Gyros and Sherry, though, who's building up the high base here. There are roughly 6 teams in this area, all with sight lines on Veno and Clix.
And it comes as no surprise considering that it's the Forecast Tower that everybody was hoping to potentially get their paws on, but instead, we'll have to sit back and wait to see what happens next here as Clix, Veno, again, they were just prevented from getting optimal positioning to set up for the Forecast Tower and launchpad plays, and now they've lost that position entirely to the likes of Peterbot and Poyo, and they know it as well. So at this stage, the only option left is for Clix and Veno to confirm these 2 eliminations now onto Damo and Resigns.
Yeah, they're starting to push here pretty aggressively. Clix doing much better job now as he's side by side his teammate Veno. The opponents, Damo on the run now. Built out to the side there. Clix still curious to the fact that he owns some of the territory here. That's going to be a small victory for them in the time being.
Keep in
Up
mind,
and over they go.
This is where they had initially trapped Resigns and Damo, but at the same time, Damo managing to sneak around out back, but it's only because of the fact that Giras, Sherry, they have moved in to the vicinity, and now Veno Clix, fully aware of the fact that there is just too many numbers surrounding them. It's too close for comfort. They've got to find another way to escape, and the other thing that could potentially be threatened at this point for Clix and Veno is the vending machine. It's gonna be, I don't want to say impossible for them to make their way to those resources, but at the same time, how do you break through all these duos already surrounding you?
Yeah, and again, more points lost as well. It's not just, of course, the game starting to slow down for them. It's the points that they're not accruing because Giras and Sherry have effectively taken those eliminations now.
I'd say even they're lucky that it seems as though Virgo and Shadow were just out of audio range to hear those shields getting cracked.
Well, they gotta get past their own armored wall,
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
It's a two-way street there.
It is a two-way street for sure, but at the same time, I definitely respect the decision there from Vico and Flixie, because that fight back that we saw from Shadow and Virgo defending their position inside of the bunker, despite the fact that it was Vico and Flixie, they did not care in the slightest. And I love that out of Shadow and Virgo, because they're a team that's coming in here, and I think a lot of people don't necessarily have many expectations for them, but the confidence that they compose themselves with, even on socials, they are here to try and actually shock the world. Similar situation, but in fact, it's actually Veno and Clix on the receiving end, and they're the ones under the most duress here. Veno, he's got a little bit of shield, but underneath that damage threshold, their final lobby of the day is not gonna pan out the way they were hoping. 9th place team in trouble.
Kind of crazy. Clix and Veno fall. Bryce and Bolts jump up above them, and they were neck and neck on the leaderboards, on the standings. So a very, very critical set of eliminations for Bryce and Bolts, and now Veno and Clix are set back home, basically having to think about today and figuring out how to patch up their gameplay to close out in top 10 performance for tomorrow. But